السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. أما بعد، فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله، وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، وشر الأمور محدثاتها، وكل محدثة بدعة، وكل بدعة ضلالة، وكل ضلالة في النار. أما بعد. So today, my brothers and sisters, I welcome you to this markaz here in Islamabad, Lahore, beg your pardon, Lahore. Today, which is Saturday, the 17th of Dhul Hijjah, 1443, which coincides the 16th of July 2022. This session with our brothers at Lahore Dawah is really, as it has been advertised, as a question and answer session, inshaAllah. So this is an opportunity for those of you who are living here in Lahore, and for those who are visiting from outside, from the various towns, villages and cities of Pakistan, to ask any questions that you have, barakallahu feekum, for those questions for which I have an ability to answer. But before we begin, let me just give you just a small muqaddimah, or an introduction to the question and answers. And that is that we are living in a time, my brothers and sisters, a time of ghurba, a time of strangeness. And it occurs in the hadith of Sahal bin Sa'ad radiyallahu anhu, who said that Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, "Inna al-Islam bada'a ghariban wa sayaudu ghariban kama bada'a." That he said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that indeed Islam began as something strange and it will return just as it began, as something strange. فَتُوبَ لِلْغُرَبَاءِ, Yani that for the ghuraba, for the strangers, there is tuba. Tuba here referring to glad tidings, or it is a bushra, and it is a glad tidings of Jannah, because tuba is a tree in Jannah. So the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that he mentioned that Islam began, when Islam began, the people saw it as something strange, something ghareeb. So we are living today, barakallahu feekum, Ahlul Sunnah, Ahlul Hadith, the Salafiyun, that they are living in a time of ghurba, a time of strangeness. And the companions of Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, they said, "Ya Rasulullah, man hum?" Or in a narration, they said, "Mal ghuraba." Man hum al ghuraba, or in a narration, "Mal ghuraba." Who are the ghuraba? Who are these strangers? So he said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, "Alladhina yuslihuna inda fasadin nas." They are those who rectify their affairs when the people have become corrupt. Meaning that when you see around you a huge amount of corruption, when you see around you that there is fasad and fitna and disobedience, there is dhunub, they are those people who are falling into sin and misguidance, then they are the ones who rectify that affair. Whether it is corruption in deen, meaning that their aqeedah has become corrupted, or whether it is in the affairs of obedience to Allah. So maybe they are people who are committing zina, or involved in riba, or they are stealing, or there is corruption, they are taking rishwa, or they are people, women who do not dress properly, meaning that they are mutabarrijat. Or they are men who are listening, men and women who are listening to music, or they are watching movies. So these are affairs in terms of the ma'asi. They are sins. Or jaise aap kehte hain ghuna. Or it is related to their aqidah. Yani that there is ifsad. Khalal hai unki aqidat mein. So their aqidah is something that has become corrupted. Maybe they go to the qubur, or they go to the various, jaise kehte hain darbar, or they go to the shrines of the Peer, and they make tawaf, or they make sajda. So Peer se mangte hain. So they go to the qabr and they ask the dead one in his grave, Sahibul Qabr, meri madad kare. Or that they make shafa'ah. So they take it as a wasila. So they ask the dead one in the grave. So who is the one who comes and rectifies all of this ifsad? Because there are people amongst the Muslims, the majority of the Muslims in the dunya, not just in Pakistan, who believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala fi kulli makan. Allah is everywhere. This aqidah is an aqidah kufriya. It is an aqidah of kufr to say that Allah is upon the ard, or that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in fi kulli makan, in every place. Whereas Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said in his book, Ar-Rahmanu ala al-arsh istawa, that the most merciful has ascended over his arsh. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raises in every time and every generation. In every zaman, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raises individuals who call the people to the haqq. And they call the people to the sunnah and to the aqidah that is sahiha. To the correct aqidah, jo aqidah, jaise kehte hain, the aqidah that is sahih, that is correct and sound. So in these times, who are those people? They are the ghuraba. Someone asked me yesterday, but we are all Muslim. Here the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wassalam said, فَتُوبَ لِلْغُرَبَى. The glad tidings are for the ghuraba. He didn't say that the glad tidings are for the Muslims. Why? Because this is a ta'ifa within the Muslims. This is a group. This is a group within the Muslims. Ta'ifa, jama'ah. Who are they? They are Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah. Who are they? They are Ashabul Hadith. Who are they? They are the Salaf. They are the ones who follow the Salaf al-Salih, Salafiyun. This is this group. Who are they? Ahlul Athar, who follow the Athar of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Who are they? The Ghuraba. Who are they? Ta'ifatul Mansura. Jaise the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, لا تزال طائفة من أمتي على الحق ظاهرين. He said that this is the Ta'ifatul Mansura. على الحق منصورين. In a narration, على الحق ظاهرين. Here the Prophet ﷺ gave them names, gave them titles. They are all Muslim. The Fasiq is a Muslim. If he makes the Shahada, he worships Allah, he is a Muslim, but he is a Fasiq. The Muqtadi', he's a Muslim, but he has bid'ah with him. Who are the ghuraba then? The ghuraba are those when they see ifsad, when they see that the people around them have become corrupted. They are the ones الَّذِينَ يُصْلِحُونَ عِنْدَ فَسَادِ النَّاسِ. They are the ones who rectify the people in the fasad النَّاسِ, when the corruption of the people becomes overwhelming. They are ghuraba. You'll find them in people's houses. You'll find in one family, there is one man who is following the madhab of the Salaf. The Aqidatul Salafiyya. He is following the Aqidah of Ahlul Sunnah, of Abu Bakr and Umar, and Uthman and Ali, and Abu Hurairah, and Ibn Abbas, and Ibn Umar, radiyallahu anhum ajma'een. He is following the Aqidah of Imam Malik, Imam Shafi, Ahmad ibn Hanbal, Imam al-Bukhari, Ibn Majah, Abu Dawood. Who is he? He is gharib in his home. Like Yusuf bin Asbat said, that my paternal uncles, that they were Qadariyah. And my maternal uncles, they were Rafida. then Allah guided me through Sufyan al-Thawri. So a person can be in his house. The Yusuf bin Asbaq was from the great ulama of the Salaf, from the early ulama. And he, in his own family, he saw that my uncles from one side, Qadariyah. They don't believe in Qadar. Qadar ko nahi mante. On the other side, they are Rafida. And they make ta'an and sab in the sahaba radiyallahu anhum. And he is alone in the house. What is he? He's ghareeb. He is from the ghuraba. And he is from the early salaf. Even today in the houses of the people you find one salafi. And the rest of the family, Quburi, or Tablighi, or Diobandi, or Ikhwani, or Jihadi, or Takfiri. You find it. But one of them, he is upon Kitab, Quran, Hadith, Sahaba. He is following one path. He is ghareeb. Because when he sees bid'ah, he says, this is bid'at. Ye bid'at hai. Sunnat ke khilaf hai. He speaks. He is ghareeb. Sometimes it is one person, he is ghareeb in a whole town or a village. Not just in Pakistan, it can happen anywhere. In Africa, in Sudan. It can happen in Mali, Mauritania, Egypt, Malaysia, Indonesia, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, India. You have in one family, one person who is following the Aqidah Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah. He's following the Aqidah of Abu Hanifa and Malik and Shafi, Ahmed ibn Hanbal, Bukhari and Abu Dawud, Ibn Khuzaymah, Ibn Taymiyyah, Ibn Qayyim. One man. And everyone around him is upon bid'ah. Thousands of people are going to the darbar and to the qabr and to the grave. This one is making sajda. This one is picking up the dirt and eating the dirt. This one is picking up the dirt by the grave. They pick it up and they rub it on the child. Kyun kar rahe hain? They said, mera beta bimar hai. This is something that is against the sunnah, against the aqidah. Mukhaliful aqidah to salafiyah. Mukhalif of the aqidah of the sahaba. Mukhalif of the aqidah of Abu Hanifa and Malik and Shafi and Ahmed, the four madhabs. So who is the one who is speaking? Who is the one who is giving this tarbiyah to the correct aqidah, to the sunnah, to salafiyah, to hadith, to the athar? These are the ghuraba. These are the Taifatul Mansura. If you are not from them, then you need to make yourself from them. If you are not from them, then help those who are upon that way and be with them and join them. So maybe Allah will count you amongst the ghuraba. Like the Prophet ﷺ said in a narration, they said, Man hum al-ghuraba? He said, hum nuzza' min al-qaba'il. He said that they are just one person from this qabila, one person from that qabila, one person from this village, one person from that township, one person from this. This is how the Salafis are today. If you look at your own family, and you look at your uncles and your aunties, and your cousins and your brothers and your sisters, how many of them upon the sunnah? Maybe you are the only one in your family. And for 10 years you've been giving them da'wah. So as a father and as a mother, if you are upon the sunnah, what's the biggest challenge for you? To keep your children upon the sunnah. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu qu anfusakum wa ahlikum nara. Oh you who believe, save yourselves and your families from the fire. My responsibility as a father, my responsibility as a grandfather, what's my responsibility? That da'wah to salafiyah does not finish in my family in one generation. So in 3 generations from now, if my lineage or my progeny live for that long, my children and their children and their children, I don't want them to say, we remember someone told us that our great-great-grandfather had a beard and he used to practice. But we don't have any of that. This is not the Salafiyah that we want. This is not the Sunni Islam that we want. I want my children upon Salafiyah, better than my Salafiyah, stronger than my Salafiyah. I want my grandchildren upon Salafiyah, better than me, stronger than me. I want my great-grandchildren. Salafiyah should not be one generation. I lived it, I become old, when I die, my children have nothing. They say, okay, we pray 5 times a day. Where's the battle between haqq and batil amongst our children? And I've seen this happen in the United Kingdom, and I see it in Pakistan. Parents, Salafi. Parents, Durus. Parents, they are sitting in the dars and they are taking notes. Aapke bete kahan, beti kahan hai? Oh, busy hain, kaam mein pare hue hain. Ye wo hai, ye hai, shopping ja rahe hain. So the Buddha is sitting there writing the dars. Bete ka aulad kahan hai? Where's the children? Oh, he's gone to play football. Oh, he's gone to some concert. He's gone on holiday. Restaurant mein kha rahe hain. Buddha baithe, he's just writing the notes. That is one generation Salafiyah. That is what we need to try to avoid. The Sahaba radiallahu anhum, if you look at the time of the Sahaba, they were the best of mankind, without any equal to them in the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Khairun nas. As the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said when they asked him, who are the best of people? He said, Ana. They said to him, the hadith of Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As radiallahu anhuma. They said to him, who are the khairun nas? Who are the best of the people? He said, Ana. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. ثُمَّ الَّذِينَ مَعِي. Then those who are with me. ثُمَّ الَّذِينَ عَلَى الْأَثَرِ. Then those who follow their path. ثُمَّ الَّذِينَ عَلَى الْأَثَرِ. Then those who follow their path. Sahaba, 114,000 of them when the Prophet ﷺ died, as Imam al-Bukhari mentioned. 114,000 Sahaba. Then after the Sahaba came the Tabi'een. Look at the training and the tarbiyah of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum. The Tabi'een after the Sahaba would triple or quadruple the number of the Sahaba. And they were upon that which the Sahaba were upon. Why? Because the Sahaba did their job. They did their job. Are they better than the Sahaba? Abadan. Because no one will say, I'm better than my father. Plus, the hadith, the kitab and the sunnah and the ijma tell us that the Sahaba are the best of mankind. Khairun nas. And Allah has mentioned that in the Quran. Radiyallahu anhum wa radu an. They are the best. Allah is pleased with them. They are, and Allah is pleased with them, and they are pleased with Him. So what do we do, my brothers and sisters? You must make sure that you take the responsibility that Salafiyah does not die in your family with you. Don't let it die when you die. And don't let it be that in 50 years or 60 years from now, that your grandchildren or great-grandchildren say, mera pardada wo, kehte the wo Salafiyah, aap kya hain? I'm nothing. Drinking and watching movies and girlfriends and boyfriends. Because that's happened in England. Anyone who's lived in the United Kingdom or in Canada or the US, a Pakistani, overseas Pakistani, you look at their grandchildren today, because now we're entering 4th generation Pakistanis in the United Kingdom. 4th generation. My grandfather came to the United Kingdom 1943. My father came in 1958. My mother came in 1965. So you look at the generations. Now you look at some of those families in the United Kingdom, that their children or their grandchildren or their great-grandchildren. In fact, if my grandfather was alive today, his great-great-grandchildren are alive today. And many of these Muslims are drinking. They are atheists, left Islam, murtaddun, outside of Islam. They don't want Islam. Or, that they carry the habits of the kuffar. Qawm Lut. Or zina. Lust. We are in a unique position. Why? Because we have ilm that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not give to our mother and our father. Because they were not educated in religion. They knew how to pray, the new zakah, the new fasting, bas. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with knowledge of the aqeedah, of tawheed, of the sunnah, of the hadith of Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So give tarbiyah to your children and hold them tight, close to you. And teach them that the greatest loyalty in their lives is to Islam. It's to the deen of Allah. Their wala and bara is for the sunnah and for the kitab, for the Quran. That they must be salafi upon the way of the sahaba radiallahu anhum. And we should not be scared to say, I am salafi. The Brelwi says, I am Brelwi. I am Qadiri. I am Chishti. I am Naqshbandi. Are they afraid to say it? Are they afraid when they say, Aapka kya masla kya kehte hain? Hum Deobandi hain. Someone asks you, what are you? Say it, I'm Salafi. Then they will ask you, Salafi kya hota hai? Now explain to them what is Salafi. If you don't know what it is, you need to come to the dars. You need to sit in the durus of our brothers in Islamabad, our brothers in Lahore, our brothers in other places in Dadial. You need to sit and you need to learn. Because Ahlul Bid'ah, they're not afraid to say what they are. They're not shy to say, I am, when you ask them, what are you? Hum Chishti tariqe par chal rahe hain. Aapka kya tariqa? Hum Naqshbandi hain. Fakhr. They say it with courage, with pride. Aap kya hain? Bas Quran Sunnah. Tell them I am Salafi. Then they will ask you, what is Salafi? Salafi are those who follow the Quran and the Sunnah and the way of the Sahaba. This is Salafi. They follow the Aqeedah of Ahmad ibn Hanbal, Malik ibn Anas, Muhammad bin Idris al-Shafi'i, Imam al-Bukhari, Muhammad bin Ismail al-Bukhari, Imam Muslim, Ibn Khuzaymah. This is Salafi. Our manhaj, our aqeedah, our fiqh, our akhlaq, our adab, our marriage, our divorce, our janaiz, all upon the hadith of Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is Salafi. Is this a new word? Naqshbandi is not new. Do you say to the Deobandi, how can you be Deobandi? This is a new term. When the Salafi says he's a Salafi, they say, this is firqabazi. But when the Deobandi says I am Deobandi, or the Tablighi says I am Tablighi, or the Naqshbandi says I am Naqshbandi, or the Chishti says I am Chishti, or the Qadri says I am Qadri, no one says anything. Ye kya firqabazi ho raha hai? But when the Salafi says I am Salafi, ye kya, kahan se aaya naya firqa? This is not a new firqa. The way of the Salaf is the madhab al-awwal. It is the first madhab. Because the Prophet ﷺ said to Fatima, I am to you a righteous Salaf. I am to you a righteous Salaf. Imam al-Sam'ani said that those who came before us, Imam al-Sam'ani died in 571 after the Hijrah. He said those who came before us, that they used to call themselves Salafi. Imam al-Dhahabi said about Imam Daruqutni from the 4th century. He said that he used to hate kalam, rhetoric and bid'ah. And he was a Salafi. When they asked Abu Hanifa, he said, stick to the tariqah of the Salaf. Abu Hanifa said it. They said to Imam al-Awza'i, they asked him, he said, stick to the madhab of the Salaf. And they tell us that this is a new firqah. This is the first. And this is what the Prophet ﷺ called to the madhab of the Salaf. Because he said, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, when they asked him who is the best of mankind, he said, Ana walladhina ma'i, me and those who are with me, sahaba. Thumma alladhina ala al-athar, those who follow their athar. This is Salafiyah. Don't be shy and don't be afraid. But when they ask you afterwards, have the answer. Teach your families, teach your children. Don't let Salafiyah die with you. When you start reaching your 50s and 60s and you think to yourself, when I'm gone, where are my children? Are they going to have the tamassuk that I have? I am weak. I am not doing enough. When I go, what are my children going to do? After I'm gone, are they going to be even weaker? If I die, and may Allah preserve us all upon the sunnah and give us long lives upon a'malu salihah, upon righteous deeds. But if I was to die tomorrow, do my children know even how to give me a janazah? Ask yourselves the question. If your wife was to die and you are not in the country, can your daughters give her janazah, ghusl and shrouding and the janazah? What they're going to do about the miraf and the fara'id, the inheritance? Who they're going to go to? This is the problem. This is one generation Salafiyah. And this is, my brothers and sisters, if you're young and you're thinking to yourself, I'm not as strong as my father and mother, you have to ask yourself the question, what do I do to lift myself? What do I do? Am I going to prefer the dunya to the akhirah? Is my fashion so important that I am going to contradict my father, contradict my mother, contradict the Salafis, because I want to look cool? I want to be that fashion icon. Is your hairstyle that important? Are your clothes, is your fashion garments that important? If your father or mother was to die tomorrow, what would you do? Tariq Saab, Zubair Saab, is that what it's going to be? Because you don't know what to do? Is that what it's going to be? You start looking around WhatsApp, have I still got his number? What are you going to do? Sahaba were not like this. Tabi'een were not like this. They knew why Allah had created them. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. We did not create mankind, Allah said. We did not create the jinn nor the mankind except for my worship. So where's your worship? You say, I pray 5 times a day. That's it? Nothing else? What about the way that you look? What about your selfies that you put up on the internet? What about your addiction to YouTube and Facebook and music? What about all of that? You say, khalas, I'll just do my 5 daily prayers. If you are doing your 5 daily prayers, your children will do less than 5 daily prayers. That's the way of the world. That's the sunnah in this dunya. Parents are stronger, children are weak. Children are weaker in most cases. So strengthen your families, strengthen your children, strengthen your wives. The mother and father should be working in harmony. No conflict. Yes, they can differ, but not in front of the children and not about Salafiyah. Mother and father should be as one unit as it relates to the deen of their children. The children, when they see mother and father, they see, I can't fight them. We can't, because they're close, they're united. If you come to the mother, she says, how dare you come to me and you oppose your father in the deen. They come to the father, how dare you oppose your mother with the deen. With the amur dunyawiya, you can differ with your father. He likes grey in the new car, he likes brown in the new car. No problem, that's dunya. In the deen, salafiyah. Barakallahu feekum. Let me move on to that was just a muqaddimah. I don't know how long it took, but anyway. We'll move on to the questions, barakallahu feekum, that the brothers have already prepared or that they've received. No problem. No problem. First question, which is related to Hajj and Umrah. Is it allowed to shorten the hair instead of shaving it completely after Hajj? This is of course for men, because the shaving is only for the men. So the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam made dua 3 times for the one who shaves the head. And he made dua once for the one who trims the hair. This is after coming out of ihram. So the reward for shaving the head in both Hajj and in Umrah is greater. As for shortening the hair, then a person is rewarded, because from the obligations of the Hajj and the Umrah, from the wajibat, is to shorten the hair. From the perfection of Hajj and Umrah is to shave the head. So as it relates to Hajj, what is the better way to do it? Because obviously the Hajj that we make is called Hajj al-Tamattu'. Hajj al-Tamattu' is that a person goes past the miqat and he makes the talbiyah for Umrah. This is the Hajj Tamattu'. When he goes past the miqat, he makes the talbiyah for Umrah. Then he performs the Umrah, and at the end of that Umrah, he shortens the hair, does not shave it. Why? Because he's going to make Hajj in a few days. So what does he do? The scholars, the fuqaha, they say that when he performs the Umrah for the Hajj, this is Hajj Tamattu', he shortens the hair. Then he comes out of ihram altogether, completely. So even his wife is permissible to him. And then on the 8th of Dhul Hijjah, Yawm Tarwiyah, he makes the talbiyah for Hajj and he goes to Mina. After the performance of the rites of Hajj, so he goes from Mina to Arafah, from Arafah to Muzdalifah. Then in the morning, he does the stoning and he does the sacrifice and he shaves his head. Why? Because he shortened it in the Umrah, now he shaves it completely. However, if he was to shorten it more, then that is permissible, jaiz. That is permissible. As for the woman, then in both cases, after the Umrah, she takes her hair at the back, like a ponytail, and she takes just the first joint of your finger. So it is like an inch that she takes after she bunches her hair together. Then after the Hajj, she does the same. So that is the sunnah for the cutting of the hair for Hajj. The next question. Oh, okay. Okay. My sister-in-law has been married and divorced twice. She has 2 grown-up sons. Her father passed away a long time ago. So now her eldest son, 28 years old, is her wali. True. She is planning to get married in about 2 weeks to someone she met a year or so ago. The man is an asylum seeker in the UK. She is a British national, and her sons are not happy with the marriage and are worried about the situation, especially as her last marriage was a similar situation. I.e., the man didn't have a British passport at the time of marrying her. They have spoken to her about their concerns, but she gets upset with them and wants to continue with the marriage. She owns her own house, which she is thinking of selling once she gets married. The wali, the eldest son, meaning her guardian, who is her eldest son, contacted the man, but the man does not communicate nor respond to him much. For example, the son calls him to discuss the arrangements, and he says, I'll call you back, but he never does. The sister regularly communicates with the man. My question, we have advised that she does a prenup agreement. Is this okay? Number 2, what types of things should we include in her prenup? Before we begin all of that prenup stuff, first of all, she should not marry him. Not because he's an asylum seeker, I don't care. She should not marry any man up until that man has some tazkiyat, has recommendation from a Salafi markaz or masjid in the UK that can vouch for the Salafiyah and the Sunnah and the adherence and the steadfastness and the istiqamah of this man. If he has no one from the Salafis that can vouch for him, do not marry him. You've been in communication with a man for a year. What are you talking to him about? This is not befitting. And it is not correct for a woman to be communicating with a man directly for a year, or for that man, if he is upon istiqamah, if he has wara' and piety, and if he is sincere and truthful, that man should not be communicating with that woman, and that woman shouldn't be communicating with the man. If they began their communication, which is a jaiz or a permissible form of communication, then we don't, criticize them for that. But what we do say is that now that she has decided to marry him, it must go through a markaz or a masjid of Salafiyya in the UK. If he's been in the community for a year, someone must know him. They must be able to vouch for him and write a letter in recommendation of him. Which duroos does he attend? Whose duroos does he attend? There are over 20 Salafi marakis and masajid in the UK. In London alone, there are more than 5 in the London area. East London, West London. In West London, there are 3. Slough, there's 1. You go further north into Birmingham. You have Oxford, you have Cardiff, you have Bristol, you have Stoke, you have Manchester. Who knows you? How has she come to this decision? And she's arguing with her children. The son should say, no, my mother, I will not agree up until I am sure that this man will look after the interests of my mother. You don't need a prenup. Why do you need a prenuptial agreement? Except that you don't trust him. If you don't trust him, he shouldn't be marrying your mother. And this is why I say, Barakallahu feekum, that the sons should not agree to allow their mother to marry this man up until it is established that he's upon da'wah to Salafiyya. If after all of that he brings the tazkiyat and the recommendations and the references and so on, then you can start talking about a prenup. What's a prenup in Islam? Islamic in the Sharia, you don't need it. Why? Because what's his is his and what's hers is hers. Khalas, there's no, like they do with the kuffar, when they get divorced, she takes 50% of his wealth. That is not from the Sharia. In the Sharia, what is his, what is hers is hers. What she walks away with is what belongs to her. What he walks away with is what belongs to him. As for the children, then the children are under his care. He must provide for them, their schooling, their education and so on. So that answers that question, Barakallahu feekum. So my advice to those children, to those sons is don't give in to your mother. Women are weak, naqisat, as the Prophet ﷺ said, that they are deficient. So maybe her emotions are overtaking her. She's already had 2 failed marriages. What does she want? And the 3rd one? So don't agree. Say, my mother, what we're doing for you, we don't disagree with your marriage. You have a right to get married. But we have a right to make sure that this marriage is in accordance with the Sharia. How do we know he doesn't want your British passport? We don't know him. He doesn't even want to talk. I'm your wali and he doesn't want to talk to me. So, my sons, you're 28 years old, you're a grown man. Tell your mother, no, my mother, I'm sorry. This is not going to go ahead. I'm going to phone up the markaz in Slough, speak to Shaykh Abdul Ilah Lahnami. I'm going to speak to the markaz in West London, in Cranford. I'm going to speak to the imam there, Masjid al-Sunnah. Or if she's in Manchester, I'm going to speak to the brothers in Markaz al-Salafi, in Manchester, in Bradford, in Birmingham, Maktabat al-Salafiyya. I'm going to find out who this man is. And if it means that you have to wait another year up until he sits in the duroos and the community knows him, then it's another year. You spent a year talking to him. We don't know who he is. So we're not comfortable. Up until you're comfortable, no. Barakallahu feekum. What is the difference between loving Ahlul Bid'ah and doing worldly affairs and dealing and working with them? Then, with respect to Ahlul Bid'ah, then the asl with Ahlul Sunnah is that if they are callers to their bid'ah, meaning that they give da'wah to that which they're upon. So when you're sitting with them, they're telling you to go on 40 days. Or they're telling you to come to the to the lectures of their sheikhs, for example. These types of people don't have anything to do with them. Not deen and not dunya. Not business, nothing to do with them. The asl with them is hajar. We don't do business with them. We have no dealings with them. Our families don't mix with them. Why? Because they are callers to the naru jahannam. They are callers to the doors of jahannam. This is the way of the salaf. I mean, I could give, quote after quote from the early salaf, but there's a whole book on my website, abukhadeejah.com, translation of hundreds of afar compiled by our Shaykh Al-Walid Al-Allama Rabi bin Hadi Al-Madkhali. From the salaf, quote after quote, about abandonment of Ahlul Bid'ah and not sitting with them. These are the callers to Bid'ah. As for the Amatul Nas, who is deceived by Ahlul Bid'ah, so maybe he's a plumber who comes to your house, and maybe he's got a taweez around his neck. Is he a person of Sunnah? No. Is he upon the da'wah to Salafiyah? No. But he's an ignorant person. He doesn't know. No one taught him. This is your opportunity to be nice to him. Be polite to him. Give him a drink. Give him a samosa. Give him a paranta. Say, you fix the laundry now, mere saath baithe. And bring some drink, sit with him. Because no one does that to him. What's the norm? Fixed it, chale jaye. Kitna? 1,000 rupees, gone. When you say to him, mere saath baithe, ye kya paya aapne? Ye gale mein kya hai? Ye mere taweez hai. Kahan se? Who gave you that? Mere peer ne mujhe diya. Kis liye? Hifazat ke liye. Now you can open the door. I've seen our brother Amjad do that. I've lost count how many people he's done it to. And you know what they do at the end? Because of the way that you give da'wah, the man will take, and I've seen him, he's taken it off, he's opened it, all that's in there is something like this. Just some rubbish paper with numbers written on it. How much did you pay? 500 rupiah maine diya. Kis liye? All the other is just Urdu numbers. And maybe one or two letters of the alphabet. And Amjad says to them, ye aapko bachayega? Is he going to save you from what? From Allah's azab? Can't save you from anything. If I rip this up now, will anything happen to me? And I saw one of them, he got scared. Because he got afraid that Amjad is going to rip this up. He said, are you afraid of a piece of paper? That's what you're afraid of? They came. And I've seen him do it. Nothing. And at the end of it, the man thanks him. That's da'wah. Can we do business with people like that? Yes. Because our business dealings with them will teach them the sunnah. As for the callers to bid'ah, those who are calling, and they're calling you, and they want you to come. Every time you sit with them, they're trying to invite you to their lectures. With them, nothing. Barakallahu feekum. No business, no trade, nothing with them. Barakallahu feekum. The wife is the sole provider for the family, while the husband is doing nothing and gets angry at her for things that are not getting done. Allahu musta'an. That must be Britain. That can't be Pakistan, right? A'udhu billah. So she's working, she's the provider. Her husband is not working. And he gets angry when she is not getting things done. And she is like running extra errands. Is it right for the husband to use foul language to swear at her? And saying it is okay for him to do so, to swear at her, as his priorities were not met. He still expects her to do all the housework. And he takes the money, also using the children's money, and he does not provide for the wife nor for the children. Sister, don't give him a penny of your money. Carry on, check the screen. It is obligatory. It is obligatory upon the man to provide for his wife and to provide for his children. It is wajib upon him to provide for his wife and children. She does not have to provide for her husband anything. If she wishes to give him sadaqah, she can. She does not have to run the errands for the house, like fix the plumbing, fix the wall. That is his responsibility. Provision for the children, that's his responsibility. So the sister advise him. If he doesn't take the advice, tell him, I want you to come with me and to sit in front of a sheikh, and you put your case forward, I'll put my case forward, and let's see who's upon the haqq. Up until then, don't spend your money on him. Unless you want to give him sadaqah, but not from demand. He has no right to demand your wealth from you. Barakallahu feekum. Is it enough for someone to be a Salafi that he studied in Saudi Arabia? No. Just because a person has studied in Saudi Arabia does not make him Salafi. There are Sufis who study in Saudi Arabia. There are Qaburis and grave worshippers who study in Saudi Arabia. There are Deobandis who study in Saudi Arabia. There are Takfiris who have studied in Saudi Arabia. There are terrorists who have studied in Saudi Arabia. And there are good Salafis also who studied in Saudi Arabia. So just like any other country in the world, you do not take from a person just because he comes from a certain place. You take from a person because he is a man of Sunnah, and he has references and he has tazkiyat and recommendations from the scholars of Salafiyah. And he used to be an imam over there. It doesn't matter if he's an imam over there. Just because you're an imam of a masjid does not make you Salafi. Not in Yemen, not in Saudi Arabia, not in Pakistan, not in Britain. What makes you a Salafi? Because you're an imam of a masjid? Or because you studied in a university? That doesn't make you Salafi. What makes you Salafi is following the kitab and the sunnah upon the way of the sahaba, following the a'immah of the early salaf, following the aqidah to salafiyah, knowing who the scholars are in every generation up until today. Ask him today, who are your salaf? Ask him, who are your scholars of today? Ask him. If he's a Salafi, ask him, who are your scholars? Sammu lana rijalakum, as the Salaf used to say. Name to us your men. Who are your scholars? Bin Baz, good. Al-Albani, good. Ibn Uthaymeen, good. Muqbil bin Hadi al-Wadi'i, good. Muhammad Aman Jami, good. Ahmed al-Najmi, good. Abdul Muhsin al-Abbad, good. Shaykh al-Fawzan, good. Shaykh al-Luhidan, good. Shaykh Rabi', good. Shaykh Ubaid, good. Now we know that your path is a path of Salafiyah. If he's telling the truth, inshallah he's a Salafi. If he mixes these names with the names of Ahlul Bid'ah, then no. If he mixes their names and he says all of these names and also Fulan al-Qardawi, Sayyid Qutb, Fulan and Fulan, say no. You cannot mix pure with the pollution. Name us your men. If you want to test a person to see whether he's a Salafi, say to him, who are your scholars? Who are your mashayikh? Who are the imams of the Salaf? Name them. Which books of Aqidah have you studied? Wasitiyah, good. Hamawiyah, good. Usul al-Sunnah, good. Sharh al-Sunnah, good. Asl al-Sunnah, good. Now we know Kitab al-Tawheed, good. Usul al-Salata, good. Now we know that this person knows the books of Aqidah and he knows the scholars. So that is a good indication of this man's Salafiyah. He doesn't say when he comes to you, I'm a graduate from the Islamic University of Medina. That doesn't mean anything. It's a good sign, but it is not enough. Who are your men? Who are the mashayikh of Medina? Who are the mashayikh of Riyadh? Who are the mashayikh of Samita? Who are the scholars of Yemen? Who are the scholars of this generation? Who are the scholars of the previous generation? What is your maslak? What is your madhab? It is allowed for you to test him before you take knowledge from him. Barakallahu feekum. Jay. Our brother Gaddafi, Hafidhullah Ta'ala, asked a very pertinent question that we were actually discussing at breakfast this morning. And that is that when you look at communities in the UK, for example, where there is a very large overseas Pakistani community, third, fourth generation, and some of these Pakistani communities and Muslim communities, they can't be from Pakistan, but it's Pakistanis, Moroccans, Bengali, Afghanis, Indians, Egyptians, Somalis, and they live in tight-knit communities in the UK. For example, in Birmingham, in Small Heath, or in Manchester, in Cheetham Hill, in Bradford, in BD7, in West London, in East London. These are communities, not just Muslim communities, but within the Muslim community, a strong Salafi community. There's something like 4,000 to 6,000 Salafis in Birmingham. So when you talk to them about the importance of hijrah, something comes to their mind. And that is that if we make hijrah, for example, to Pakistan, for the Pakistanis, in Pakistan we don't have a community like the community in Birmingham, Salafi community, or even a Muslim community where the masajid, there's maybe a handful of masajid, and the Salafi masjid is there, and our children have a school there, a Salafi school, for example. So if we were to leave that and make hijrah to Pakistan, are we leaving that which is better, in essence, for that which is worse, in terms of secular education and in terms of religious education? And it's a valid argument. I'm not going to discount it. It's a valid argument. It's not easy for everyone to say, well, what I'm going to do is leave the United Kingdom, leave Birmingham, Manchester, West London, whatever, and move to Lahore or to Islamabad or to Dadial. Why? Because when they come here, they're not going to find the same infrastructure that they have, for example, in Birmingham, or in Manchester, or in Bradford, or in West London. They're not going to find that Salafi infrastructure where there's a Salafi school, primary school, like in Birmingham, for example, primary school, secondary school, 2 mosques. One mosque capacity is about 1,500, other mosque is about 2,500 capacity, with a large Salafi community, students of knowledge, graduates that are true graduates from the Islamic University, brothers who have studied with Shaykh Muqbil, brothers who have tazkiyat from Shaykh Rabi', Shaykh Muqbil, Shaykh Abdullah al-Ghudayan, and they say to themselves, so I'm going to leave all of that and come to Islamabad. Is this really a decision that I should be making? It's a dilemma, no doubt, it's a challenge. The answer to that can be looked in from various angles. Number one, this cannot be done overnight. The process of hijrah should not be today I'm in Birmingham, tomorrow I'm in Lahore or Islamabad. That's not the way that you make hijrah. Why? Because you're going to have children, you've got wife, you've got parents, you've got a family over there. It is not something that is possible for everyone to leave all of that and to pack their suitcases and turn up at Islamabad airport. That's not the way to make hijrah. You have to prepare yourselves. How do you prepare yourselves? First of all, find out the communities in Pakistan. This is why I advise most Salafi brothers when they leave the United Kingdom, do not think to yourselves that you're going to settle in your village in Pakistan. Because the villages generally will not have Salafiyah unless it's Dadial. Generally they're not going to have Salafiyah, except maybe one brother or 2 brothers. So you need to find a community first and foremost in Pakistan where there is something of Salafiyah there. So you're going to be looking at Islamabad, or Lahore, or Dadial as a third option. When you're looking at Islamabad, you need to find out and ask yourself the question, right, what am I going to do about my children's education when I get there? The Tarbiyah Islamiyah. And also on top of that, who are the students of knowledge that I'm going to sit with? Can they speak English? Because maybe your Urdu isn't strong. Who is there? Like in Islamabad right now, you have Zubair, fluent English, fluent Arabic, fluent Urdu. You also have our brother Al-Ustad Tariq bin Ali Brohi. He's a mudarris, a teacher who teaches in the Markaz al-Darimi. We also have Abu Arwa, who also teaches there, migrated from the UK, living in Islamabad. So now, straight away that makes you think, okay, there's something there. There's a Markaz there. There's an infrastructure there. There are weekly duroos. I don't know, about 3 or 4 a week. There are Quran classes for sisters. There's a summer school for the children. So there's something there. They're building a masjid in Islamabad. When you look at Lahore, it's the same question that you have to ask yourself. If I'm going to bring my children here, they may come to Lahore or Islamabad. Will they be able to integrate into the community? So Islamabad worked for me. Why did it work for me? Because of the fact that I already know the students of knowledge there. I knew Zubair, I knew Tariq. I knew the brothers there, like Brother Mahmoud, known him since 1995. I knew Brother Nu'man Sharif, because I met him in Umrah, and through WhatsApp messages and messaging over the years, and he was, he's from East London. I know Ali Mir, Abu Arwa, from maybe 20 years. And Mahmoud's children are of the same level as my children in terms of age. So there was always going to be some sort of, harmony and integration that I would find easier. So when I brought my children over, I'd never showed them in the beginning the bad side of Pakistan. Because every country has good and bad. So I hid from them the underbelly of Pakistan. I didn't show them many of the bad areas. So we went to the nice areas. So I booked from Airbnb, first year that I came, D12. D12 is a nice area in Islamabad. You go to the roof of the villa, I rented it for that few weeks I was here. You go to the roof and you're seeing all of the Margla Hills right in front of your eyes, less than a kilometer away. Then in the shopping areas, Centaurus. Took them to Mahmoud's family, to Nu'man's family, to Zubair and Zubair's family. Introduced them to the brothers of the Markaz. So they're looking and they're thinking to themselves, Pakistan's not that bad. Because I showed them the best I could. They're going to see the bad side of Pakistan anyway. They're going to see a little bit of corruption, or a lot of corruption maybe. So they're going to see that side at some stage. But the way that I introduced them to Pakistan, I took them to Murray, took them to Bourbon, took them to Mangla Resort, which is the village that we come from in Azad Kashmir. So they saw the nice parts of Pakistan. Mahmoud Jazallah Khair, Nu'man, Zubair, they took us around to the nice places. So the kids were like, MashaAllah, Abu, Pakistan's nice. Because it actually is nice. It's beautiful. Last year we went to Hunza, and we went to Gilgit. Last year we went all the way to Muzaffarabad. We went to Bourbon. We came to Lahore last year, and I didn't do any lectures. Why did we come to Lahore? We showed them some of the historical sites and the heritage sites in Lahore. So now they're beginning. Yes, it is going to hurt your pocket. But it's worth it, because it's for the tarbiyah of your children. So after a few years, that's like 4 or 5 years ago, it took 4 or 5 years, they became acclimatized. This year was not my idea to bring them. So they're with me this year. So now we live in Islamabad, our second home. Really, I call it my first home now, is in Islamabad. When I came this year, and at the beginning of this year when I was making plans to come, this is my second visit this year, the kids themselves, I call them kids, but they're adults, all of them. And 4 of them are married, right? So they're married, Allah Mubarak Fihim. They all, 4 of them are married. They have, my eldest daughter, she has 3 children of her own, so my grandfather, the boys are married, and one of my daughters is married. This year they said, Abu, when are we going to Pakistan? When are you going? When are you going? When are we going to book the tickets? Now they want to come. My son Abdullah, he's studying in the University of Medina. He said, Abu, if you don't mind this year, that I'm going to spend the Ramadan holidays in Pakistan. I'm not coming to England. I said, no problem. He said, so I went to Riyadh, met him in Riyadh. I brought his wife to Islamabad. He followed us later. And he spent Ramadan. It was his choice, not my choice. The younger son, Khalid, he said the same thing. He said, Abu, when you going to Riyadh? When you going to Islamabad? When you going to Islamabad? I said, I'll give you the dates. He goes, when you going to Islamabad? Have you booked it? Have you booked it? So when I booked it, then he booked his. Because now their hearts are connected. Because you show a person beauty of something. Do they know that Pakistan has bad parts? Yes, they've seen it now. But the beauty of Pakistan has established itself and rooted itself in their hearts. So they've seen the good in Pakistan. They've seen the good families. They've seen the good salafis. They know the markaz. I wake up in the morning, I say, where's my car key? They've taken the car. I said, where's the car key? I said, oh, Abdullah Khalid, one of them has taken the car key. Now they drive around Islamabad like it's home. They can hardly speak Urdu. Urdu for them is difficult. But they love Islamabad and they love Pakistan. Right? So now my son-in-law or sons-in-law and daughters-in-law, they love Pakistan. My son-in-law is here. He said, Uncle, you're going to Pakistan, we're going to follow you. So he arrived last night. There's no pressure. This is just their heart feeling, you know what, it can't be that bad. And actually, to say it's not that bad is actually to belittle Pakistan. And to belittle the Muslim. Morocco's like that. You know, Algeria's like that. Somaliland is like that. These are beautiful countries. But our hearts have been attached to the West. And this is through their indoctrination. So what I would advise those brothers and sisters who are finding it difficult in the UK, and they're finding the decision making difficult, I don't blame you. I don't want it ever to be said that, you know, we followed his advice, we packed our bags, we turned up at Lahore airport and we got stuck. We ain't got nowhere to live, we have no income, we have nothing. Prepare. Prepare yourselves. Come to Pakistan first and foremost if you are an overseas Pakistani, second, third, fourth generation. Come to Pakistan, bring your children as a holiday. Book yourself into a nice resort, or into a nice hotel, or Airbnb a nice villa in F7, F10 in Islamabad, or in D12, or in G13, a nice villa where now your children are staying there. Jazakallah khair. So what we do is, you bring them, let them have a holiday, one holiday, second holiday, third holiday, fourth holiday. Wallahi, their hearts will become attached. Will they still have a liking for England? Of course. They were born there. They're going to miss the cheddar cheese. They're going to miss some of the restaurants. Of course. You know, you want a good cottage cheese. You want Yorkshire Wensleydale cheese. You're not going to find that in Pakistan. You're not going to find your Marks and Spencer sandwiches. It's true. But there's enough things in Pakistan to replace that. Better than that. Right? So, bring your children slowly. You know, Lahore may not be the best place for you. Islamabad may not be the best place for you. So what do? You come on a fact-finding mission. The brothers here in Lahore, and I'm sure in Islamabad, you contact them and say, we're coming over. Where shall we stay? What's your advice? You can speak to Brother Mahmoud, you can speak to Brother Nu'man, you can speak to Zubair, you can speak to Tariq, you can speak to Isa from Islamabad expat homes, you can speak to Qaddafi here in Lahore, you can speak to Mumtaz who lives in Riyadh but he's a regular visitor to Lahore. Ask them. Make your visit, make a plan. Don't just come here and say, we stayed there for 2 weeks, kuch bhi nahi ho raha. Plan. This is what I did with my family. Qaddafi has done the same, he did it before me 8 years ago. Brother Mahmoud did it, 15 odd years ago. Nu'man did it 12 years ago. Ali Mir did it over a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago. Our brother Amjad did it 4 or 5 years ago. People are doing it. All you have to do is commit yourself to the degree that you are able. Take small steps. Introduce your children to it. Think about education. Who do you talk to? I'm not the best person to speak to. Speak to Brother Tariq, speak to Qaddafi, speak to Zubair, speak to Amjad, speak to Mahmoud. There's a Saudi school in Islamabad where our brother Mahmoud sent his children. Nu'man sent his children. It's a Saudi school, Saudi curriculum. They come out fluent in Arabic. The Markaz teaches Quran. Do you have 6,000 Salafis like Birmingham? No. You don't have that. But it will come. You think Birmingham just came like that with 6,000 Salafis? When we started Dawah in Birmingham, there were 4 people sitting in my dars and maybe 5 or 6 sitting in Abu Talha rahimahullah's dars. That's all it was, 4 or 5. Today, anything between 4 and 6,000 live in Birmingham, Salafis, with 2 Salafi masajid, large ones, with a Maktaba Salafiyya, the most the most well-known Salafi organization in the West, in the Western world, Maktabat Salafiyya, Markaz al-Salafi, Masjid al-Salafi, Masjid al-Sunnah. Then you have 18 or 19 other Marakiz and masajid in Britain. Where does it begin? It begins at small. Begins as something small. So this is my nasiha to you, barakallahu feekum. Where was that question? कहाँ चले गए? लिख रहे हैं? ले आए भाई, कोई बात नहीं. When do we finish? What time's prayer?
Prayer
now.
Yes.
Okay. So I'll answer 1 or 2 questions very quickly and then we'll conclude inshallah for today. As-salam, is that alright? Yeah, inshallah. I think the food has arrived as well. Can we create an armed group under an Islamic flag? Not for attack, but for defense purpose? Under the armed license of Pakistan? Until Mahdi alayhi salam arrives. Where do you begin with that? Yeah. What I advise you with in this regard is that this is something actually is not our da'wah does not begin with this. If you want to join the Pakistani army, go to the Pakistani Army Recruitment Center. You want to help Pakistan, defend Pakistan, go to the Pakistani Army Recruitment Center. Ask them, seek their advice. I don't know anything about this type of affair. As for waiting for the Mahdi, the scholars don't speak like this. Our da'wah in Pakistan is tawheed. Call the people to worship Allah and to follow Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and to follow the hadith and to follow the way of the sahaba radiyallahu anhum. As for these flags and this flag and this group and that group, our loyalty, kitab, sunnah, sahaba. Work in Pakistan, give da'wah in Pakistan, seek knowledge in Pakistan. Work in Pakistan. Make dua for Pakistan. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala strengthens them and guides them and gives them tawfiq. This is a land of Islam. This is a land of Muslims. This is Darul Islam. Just like Saudi Arabia is Darul Islam. Just like the UAE is Darul Islam. Turkey, Yemen is Darul Islam. Egypt is Darul Islam. Morocco is Pakistan is no different. This is a land of Islam and the Muslims. Our duty as Salafis is not to enter into these types of abwab. Our duty, come to the dars and learn your deen. Come to the lessons, learn your religion. If you are interested in joining the army, go to the Army Recruitment Center. I have no experience in this field. But what I do know is that this is a land of Islam. And this is a land where we should live peacefully and in harmony and in aman. Our neighbor, we look after him. Our brothers and sisters, we look after them. If they're hungry, we feed them. Just like I mentioned, if a person is in need of learning Tawheed, we teach them Tawheed. We teach them to follow Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam upon the methodology of the Sahaba radiyallahu anhum. This is my nasiha to you. All of my topic, I've not entered into this. Why? Because this is not our da'wah. Our da'wah does not begin with this. We're talking about simple things. Worship Allah, pray 5 times a day, follow the sunnah. Stop causing, this tafarruq and separation in the land of Pakistan. Let the Muslims be united upon the book and the sunnah and the way of the sahaba. This is what will unite Pakistan and give honor and strength to any country. Kitab, sunnah, way of the sahaba. No one will overcome Pakistan after that. No any other Muslim country. As long as La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. You cling to La ilaha illallah. You follow Rasulullah alayhi salatu wassalam. And you take the fahm and the understanding of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum. This is how we follow. Barakallahu feekum. As for all of these affairs, go to the Army Recruitment Center and ask them those questions. Barakallahu feekum.
Nice question. She sent it 2 or 3 times.
No problem.
There's this one, and there's another question that brother left a voice note. I'll leave it to you.
Okay, inshallah.
It's to do with the political situation at the moment. It's affecting every household, every talking about
Which situation?
the
Political situation.
One government taking another government.
Yeah.
What is Islam specifically with regards to that? And that final question.
Okay. Let me start with the question so I don't forget it. In Pakistan recently there's been some political turmoil. This is something that none of us can ignore. Why? Because you see it on the streets, you see people marching, you see demonstrations, mudaharat, julus on the streets and sit-ins and so on. So what is the attitude of the person of Sunnah and Salafiyah? Our response to that is that our da'wah does not change. We still invite people to Tawheed. Worship Allah. Pray 5 times a day. Don't commit shirk. Follow the Sunnah. Leave bid'ah. They tell us, do we march in the street? Don't march in the street. Stay in your home. Busy yourself with your family. Busy yourself with your relatives. Go to work. Earn a living. When the people say to you, Aay hamare saath, let's go out into the street. We say, no. Waqt nahi hai. Kyun? I'm studying. I'm learning. Main dars par ja raha hoon. I'm not going to go to the marching in the street, the mudaharat. I'm not going. Aap mere saath aaye dars par. You come with me. And let's go to the dars. Learn the tafsir of the Quran. Tafsir of Surah Al-Fatiha. Tafsir of Surah Al-Baqarah. Let's learn the Aqidah. What was Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal's Aqidah? What was Imam Abu Hanifa's Aqidah? Let's learn the Aqidah of Imam al-Tahawi. Let's learn the Aqidah of Al-Wasitiyah of Ibn Taymiyyah. Let's read Kitab al-Tawheed. Someone needs our help. Chalo uske paas jate hain. He needs our zakat. This village we need to dig a well. Pani nahi aa raha. Let's go to that village unki madad kare. There's no benefit in mudaharat. If you get busy with siyasat never finishes. There is no limit to siyasat. Today it's this, tomorrow it's something else, then it's something else. Deen kab seekhenge aap? When are you going to learn the religion? Every day you're watching this channel, that channel. Kya ho raha? Islamabad mein kya ho raha? Lahore mein kya ho raha? Peshawar mein kya ho raha? Karachi mein kya ho raha? Political situation kya hai? You have to worry about yourself and your children and your wife. You have to worry about your relatives and your neighborhood. You have to worry about your friends and the ibadah of the people. Busy yourself with ilm. Busy yourself with ilm. Talabul ilm. The seeking of knowledge. Faridatun ala kulli Muslim. Seeking of knowledge is obligatory upon every Muslim. Ilm kyun nahi hasil karte aap? Teach me about Tawheed. Ask the average person who is involved in siyasa. Talk to me for 3 minutes about Tawheed. And they can't. Alright, 2 minutes about Tawheed. And they can't. 1 minute about Tawheed. Just 1 minute. Teach me about Tawheed for 1 minute. Can't. Acha, parliament mein kya ho raha? They'll talk to you for 6 hours. Kyun? Why? Because the ummah today has been cultivated more upon siyasa than upon ilm al-shar'i. A person doesn't know how to make janazah, but he knows everything about the political parties in Pakistan. Kyun? This is not our way. You know, the person who is doing the plumbing in your house, if you sit with him for 1 hour, while he's doing all he's talking about is politics. Usko kehna bas 2 minutes, tell me something about Rasulullah for 2 minutes. Wo to Nabiullah hai. Yeah, I know he's Nabiullah. Kuch, tell me something. Bas. Can't tell you for 1 minute about mutaba'ah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. But for 6 hours he will tell you about what's happening in Karachi and in Islamabad and in Lahore, the protest that was there, march yahan ho raha hai, TV mein kya keh rahe hain, parliament mein kya ho raha hai, London mein kya kar rahe hain, exile kisne kiya hai. Say, where's the Tawheed and Sunnah? Read to me 4 hadith of Rasulullah. Ek hadith aap wo nahi aapko suna sakte. Not one hadith. Not one hadith of Rasulullah, chahe Urdu mein, English mein, Arabi mein. Not one hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Chalo mujhe namaz sikhaye. The man can't even pray properly. Wallahi, the man doesn't know how to make namaz. Doesn't know how to pray properly. But he'll know every final minute of what is happening in politics. March ho rahi hai 6 baje Islamabad mein, 4 baje Lahore mein, is channel mein, is WhatsApp group mein, is Facebook par. How do you make namaz? Wuzu. They don't even know how to make wuzu properly. Brothers and sisters, we're the priority. When Mu'adh bin Jabal, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam sent Mu'adh bin Jabal to Yemen. He said to Mu'adh, "Oh Mu'adh, I'm sending you to a people from the people of the book. Let the first thing that you call them to is Tawheed." Mu'adh bin Jabal, alim. The Prophet ﷺ said, he is the most knowledgeable in the haram, in the halal and haram. Mu'adh bin Jabal. Mu'adh bin Jabal, alim. Rasulullah ﷺ sent him to Yemen. Kis liye siyasat? He said, let the first thing that you call them to is that they worship Allah alone, wahdahu. If they accept that, إِذَا عَرَفُوا ذَلِكَ فَأَخْبِرْهُمْ, then inform them that Allah has obligated upon them the 5 daily prayers. So he taught them Tawheed, then he taught them the 5 daily prayers. Then he taught them the zakat. This is Mu'adh bin Jabal. Yahan kya ho raha hai mere bhai? What is happening in our countries? Not just in Pakistan, everywhere, even in England. You know what they're talking about in England? Morning, noon and night? Boris Johnson. He's resigned. Boris Johnson resigned. Kar diya. The man doesn't know how to pray. He himself doesn't know anything about the deen of Islam. But he knows everything that is happening in Parliament in London. Everything. How is that going to benefit you in your grave? कब्र के क्या सवाल हैं? क्या पूछा जाएगा कब्र में? When Munkar and Nakir come to you in your grave, what's the question? Boris Johnson? Parliament? Mudaharat? United Nations? Geneva Convention? What's the first question in the grave? Man Rabbuk? Second question in the grave, Ma Dinuk? Third question in the grave, Man Nabiyuk? وَمَنْ هَذَا رَجَلْ الَّذِي بُعِثُ فِيكُمْ? Or who is that man that was sent amongst you? These are the questions in the grave. Mu'adh bin Jabal is sent to Yemen, Tawheed and Salah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the prophets and the messengers. وَلَقَدْ بَعَثْنَا فِي كُلِّ أُمَّةٍ رَسُولًا نِعْبُدُ اللَّهِ. We sent a messenger to every nation, calling the people to worship Allah. This is the most important thing. Jo gharib log hain, if they are poor people, give them sadaqah. If you want to help the balad, if you want to help the watan, the country, no problem. Join the legitimate army, the legitimate police force. Koi baat nahi, Muslim country, kyun nahi? We should help them. But your da'wah and your knowledge is in the kitab and the sunnah. Tawheed, mutaba'ah, tazkiyatun nufus. Aapka nafs saaf kare. Kya dekh rahe? Why are you looking at dirty videos? YouTube par kya dekh rahe? Why are you looking at girls on YouTube? Why are you listening to music on the internet? Aapki dil ki safai karen pehle. Tawheed, mutaba'ah, tazkiyatun nafs. Making tazkiyah of the nafs. Purify your soul. Keep away from sins. Ye kya hai? Every day. March here, march there, biryani khayal rahe hain. You know, they're feeding you biryani. Biryani khayenge after the mudaharat. Chahe maybe my picture will be on the television. Oh, dekhe ye main hu, dekhe. That's what they do. That's what they do. Because it happens even in Egypt. Happens in Tunisia. Happens in Morocco. Everywhere when they go out marching. This is from shaitan. Because you are leaving what is important. And you are wasting your time in something that is of no benefit. Mudaharat, marching in the street, has never benefited any Muslim country. All it does is destabilize the country. Mudaharat and marching destabilizes the aman and security in a country. If you do one march, 1 million people come to a march, and they stay there for 5 hours. That's 5 million hours of work that they lost. Imagine that. You want to talk about economy? Where's the aql? Aql kahan logon ka? You want to build your economy. And 1 million people march. And they are out for 5 hours. 5 hours away from their wife. 5 hours away from their children. 5 hours not in the masjid. 5 hours away from work. That's 5 million man hours gone. Are they coming back? Gone. They're not coming back. You want to spend time? That time that you're spending marching, dua karen. Oh Allah, bring aman to Pakistan. Oh Allah, bring strength to Pakistan. Oh Allah, bring hidayah to Pakistan. Oh Allah, give tawfiq to Pakistan. Oh Allah, guide the people of Pakistan. Oh Allah, aid Pakistan against its enemies from the kuffar and the mushrikeen. Ye karna chahiye. Wallahi, you get more benefit in this than marching in the street for 20 hours. One dua is better than all of what they are doing. Soch kahan hai logon ke? Where's the thinking? It's just a fun day out. Chalo shughul ho jayega. Be careful. Don't let your families get involved in this politics. If you hear something, chalo sun liya, no problem. But our effort, priority, ilm, knowledge, and tatbiq. Acting upon the knowledge. Barakallahu feekum. The last question? Last question, inshallah. Or last one, two. Assalamu alaikum. Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullah. I hope all is well with you, inshallah. I had a question. How can we develop the love of the Quran in the children? What is the process? What are the steps that we can take? Now, as for love of the Quran, the first thing that you do is that you teach the people the Quran, the letters of the Quran, the alphabet, the Arabic language of the Quran. Second thing is that as they are learning the Quran, they are learning what the Quran is telling them. So they read the Quran in a language that they understand, meaning that when you raise your children, you teach them Arabic. So alongside teaching them the Quran and the hifz of the Quran, they learn the Quran and the language of the Quran, the Arabic language. Jaise, you teach your children Urdu and you teach your children English. They should be learning Arabic, min bab awla. More important is Arabic. Why? Because that is the language of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That is the language of the Quran, is the language of the Arabs. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the Quran in the Arabic language. You want the people to understand Islam, let your children read the Quran in the Arabic language. So they understand what they are reading. And then they understand the ma'ani of the Quran, the meanings of the Quran. So they don't make their own interpretation. They make the understanding of the Quran in accordance with the Mufassirin, Imam al-Tabari, Mujahid before him, from the students of Abdullah ibn Abbas, when he said that I read every single ayah of the Quran to Abdullah ibn Abbas, and I read the Quran to him 3 times, and he stopped me at every ayah, meaning for every ayah Ibn Abbas gave him a tafsir. He's a tafsir of Mujahid. You'll find it in the tafsir of Imam al-Tabari. You'll find it in Qurtubi. You'll find it in Ibn Kathir. You'll find it in Imam al-Shinqiti's Adwa al-Bayan. You'll find it in Imam al-Sa'di's tafsir of the Quran. If you don't know Arabic right now, then you can read. Some of these have been translated into English and Urdu. But the important thing is that you read the Quran. You don't beat your children with the Quran. So if they make a mistake in the Quran, don't beat them. Why? Because they'll begin to resent reading the Quran. So every time they think about the Quran, they think about the pain in their back. Teach your children to love the Quran and to understand the meanings of the Quran. So when they read Surah Al-Fatiha, you say to them, समझ आई क्या लिखा हुआ है, क्या पढ़ रहे हैं, समझ आती है? Explain to them. Take the tafsir. Tafsir Sa'di is in Urdu, right? Tafsir of Imam al-Sa'di, which is a beautiful tafsir, it's in Urdu now. So when your children are reading to you Surah Al-Fatiha, say to them, let me read to you the Urdu tafsir of every ayah in Surah Al-Fatiha. And then explain it to them. Maybe they don't understand what you're reading to them. So you explain to them, this is what Imam Sa'di is saying. This is what Ibn Kathir is saying. Then Surah Baqarah. And Surah Baqarah, of course, with all of its, the length of Surah Al-Baqarah, the biggest surah of the Quran. Then Surah Ali Imran. Go through the Quran with them. Whatever they're memorizing, let them understand it. And their hearts will become attached when they act upon the Quran, and they understand the Quran, and they understand the stories of the Quran. They understand the story of Nuh alayhi salam, of Dawood alayhi salam, Sulaiman alayhi salam. They understand the story of Isa alayhi salam, Musa alayhi salam, Ibrahim alayhi salam. In their minds, they're building a picture of Islam from the beginning of mankind up until the last hour. From the beginning of the creation of Adam up until Yawm al-Qiyamah, the picture is in their mind. They got it all from the Quran and its tafsir. This is how you inculcate love of the Quran in your children. Barakallahu feekum. Upon that note, inshallah, we'll finish for today. وسبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.